I never told my family why I kept paying for that storage unit for 23 years. Not because it was a secret worth hiding, but because no one ever asked me twice. My name is Robert Hale. I'm 68 years old, and until 3 months ago, my son Daniel believed I was a man who wasted money on a rusted metal box full of nothing. "Dad, it's $200 a month for junk," Daniel said one evening at dinner, not even looking up from his phone. "Mom's old furniture, some boxes, cancel it. My wife, Carol, passed 6 years ago. That storage unit held pieces of her I couldn't yet fold into memory alone. Her sewing machine, her letters, the wedding dress she wore when she was 22. But it held something else too, something even Carol never fully knew the value of." I said nothing. I never explained myself to people who didn't ask with patience. "He won't cancel it," my daughter-in-law Priya added, stirring her coffee without looking at me either. "He never listens to practical advice. It's like talking to a wall. A wall doesn't feel anything. I did. I just didn't let it show. 3 months earlier, my daughter Emma had asked to borrow money for her kitchen renovation. I told her I didn't have extra cash sitting around, which was true, in the way I wanted it to be true. She'd rolled her eyes and said, "Must be nice living so simple you don't need money for anything." She thought simplicity meant emptiness. Daniel had lost his job at the marketing firm 4 months before that dinner. He and Priya moved into my house, temporarily, though temporarily was stretching toward its first birthday. I welcomed them without complaint. I cooked dinner every night. I paid the increased grocery bills without mentioning it. And still, somehow, in their eyes, I became the family burden. Old, outdated, a man who spent money foolishly on a storage unit instead of contributing to real family needs. "We could use that $200 a month," Daniel said again, 2 weeks later, "for groceries, for gas, for literally anything, except boxes rotting in a warehouse." "It's not rotting," I said quietly. "It's memory. Memory doesn't pay bills, Dad." I looked at my son, my only son, the boy I taught to ride a bike on Sycamore Street, the boy whose Little League games I never missed, even when I worked double shifts, and I saw a stranger wearing his face. Impatience had replaced the softness I remembered. I didn't argue. I simply nodded and let the conversation die, the way I'd let 1,000 conversations die over the past year. Silence was not weakness. Silence was strategy. Silence was survival. That night, I sat alone in my study, staring at a small brass key I kept in my top drawer. It was the only key to Unit 214 at Riverside Storage. 23 years of payments, never late, never questioned by anyone but my own family in these recent months. I thought about calling my old friend Marcus, my accountant, to update him on things. But it wasn't time yet. 2 weeks passed. The tension in the house thickened like humidity before a storm. Emma started visiting more often. Not out of love, I'd come to realize, but out of financial worry disguised as concern. "Dad, have you thought about downsizing? Maybe selling the house? You're 68. You shouldn't be handling all this by yourself." "Handling what?" I asked. "Everything. The house, the storage unit, your retirement. What if something happens to you? None of us even know what's in your accounts." There it was, the real question beneath the question. Not concern for my well-being, curiosity about what I had, and fear that it wasn't enough to matter. I told her I was fine. I told her my finances were handled. She didn't believe me. I watched it in her eyes. The quiet calculation of a woman assuming her father was drowning in modest savings and Social Security checks, embarrassed to admit it. The final straw came on a Sunday afternoon. Daniel called a family meeting, sitting all of us, Emma, her husband Tom, Priya, and me, around the dining table, like I was a business problem needing resolution. "We've decided," Daniel said, his voice carrying the false authority of someone performing decisiveness, "that the storage unit needs to go. We checked, and you're behind by one payment this month for the first time in years. We think it's a sign. You're slipping, Dad. We're going to handle it. Clear it out, sell what we can, and stop the bleeding." Behind on one payment. That was true. I'd been distracted. A doctor's appointment, a lawyer's call, matters I hadn't shared with them. "We already scheduled it," Emma added gently, as if gentleness could soften control. "This Thursday, an auction company is coming to assess everything. Whatever doesn't sell, we're donating or throwing away." I looked around the table at their faces, Daniel's frustration, Emma's pity, Priya's discomfort, Tom's indifference. Not one of them asked me what was actually inside that unit. Not one of them asked why I'd paid faithfully for over 2 decades. They had already decided I was a confused old man clinging to worthless boxes. "All right," I said simply. Daniel blinked, clearly expecting resistance. "All right, that's it?" "That's it," I said. "Thursday works fine." I saw the flicker of doubt cross Daniel's face, the same flicker children get when their parent agrees too easily, when some ancient instinct whispers that surrender was never really surrender at all. Thursday morning arrived, gray and quiet. I drove separately from the rest of them, telling Daniel I needed to stop somewhere first. What I didn't tell him was that somewhere was Marcus's office, where I picked up a thick manila envelope I'd been preparing for exactly this moment. When I arrived at Riverside Storage, my family was already there, along with a woman named Diane from the auction company. Clipboard in hand, scanning boxes with the practiced disinterest of someone who had cleared out hundreds of forgotten lives. "Mr. Hale?" Diane asked as I approached. "We've started the initial assessment. Most of this appears to be," she paused delicately, "sentimental items. Furniture, documents, some old memorabilia. Open the far cabinet first," I said. "The locked one." Daniel frowned. "There's a locked cabinet? You never mentioned. You never asked," I said. Diane worked the small combination lock I'd installed years earlier, and the cabinet doors swung open to reveal several sealed boxes, each labeled in my careful handwriting. Deeds, contracts, Hale Holdings LLC, correspondence, J. Whitfield. Emma's face changed first. "Hale Holdings. Dad, what is this?" I pulled the manila envelope from under my arm and set it on the folding table Diane had brought. "In 1998, 3 years after your mother and I got married the second time, after I rebuilt this family from nothing, following my first business failure, I partnered quietly with an old college friend, James Whitfield, on 4 rental properties downtown. We never advertised it. We never lived large. Every dollar of profit went back into acquiring more property, into your college funds, into your mother's medical bills toward the end, and into an account I never touched for myself. Daniel's mouth opened, but no words came. The storage unit, I continued, wasn't full of junk. It was full of 23 years of deeds, tax records, and partnership agreements. Because James passed away 8 months ago, and this year I became sole owner of Hale Holdings. 14 properties, not glamorous, not flashy, but worth, according to my accountant's last appraisal, just over $6 million. The silence that followed was different from any silence I'd created myself. This one belonged entirely to them. "You let us think," Priya started, then stopped, unable to finish the sentence. "I let you believe what you wanted to believe," I said, not with anger, but with the calm clarity of 23 years of practice. I never lied. I simply never corrected assumptions you were so eager to make. Emma's eyes filled with tears. "Dad, why didn't you just tell us?" "Because the moment money enters a conversation, people change how they look at you," I said. "I wanted to see who my children were when they thought I had nothing left to give. And now I know." Daniel sank into a folding chair, running his hands through his hair. "The $200 a month. I told you to cancel it. I called it a waste." "You did," I said, "more than once." "I'm sorry," he whispered. "I'm so sorry, Dad. We've been treating you like a burden this whole year, and you were—" He couldn't finish. "I was still your father," I said quietly. "That never changed, no matter what you assumed about my bank account." Diane, sensing the moment belonged to us and not to her clipboard, quietly stepped away to give us privacy. Emma reached for my hand, tears falling freely now. "We judged you. We made you feel small in your own house. I asked you for renovation money and made you feel guilty for saying no, when you could have. When I could have paid for it easily," I finished. "Yes, but money given carelessly teaches nothing. I wanted to see if you loved your father, or the idea of what he might provide." Priya, who had said the least to me over the past year, finally spoke. "I called you a wall. I said talking to you was pointless." Her voice cracked. "I'm ashamed of that. Walls protect what's inside them," I said gently. "Sometimes that's all a person can do when the people around him stop asking real questions." We stood there in that storage unit for a long time, longer than any auction company should have waited, while my family absorbed 23 years of silence finally speaking its truth. In the weeks that followed, things didn't transform overnight, because real change never does. But Daniel started asking questions instead of assumptions. Emma started visiting because she wanted to, not because she was calculating my usefulness. Priya began sitting with me some evenings, just talking, no agenda behind it. I didn't give away the properties. I didn't hand out sudden inheritances to smooth over guilt. Instead, I did something more valuable. I invited them, one by one, into the business itself. Daniel now manages 2 of the properties, learning the work his impatience once dismissed as beneath urgency. Emma handles the books, finally understanding what handled had meant all along. "The storage unit is empty now. I closed it last month. The deeds and documents moved to a proper office downtown, but I kept the key. Some nights, I still hold that small brass key and remember what it taught all of us. That respect, given only when convenient, isn't respect at all, and that the quietest people in a room are sometimes the ones holding everything together. My family finally sees me now, not as a burden to manage, but as the man who carried them silently for over 2 decades, waiting patiently for them to look closer. I never needed them to know what was in that storage unit to love me the way I deserved, but I'll admit, watching them finally understand felt like 23 years of silence, quietly, finally, being heard.